Hi guys, Mike Pfeiffer with Pfeiffer Hobby. I'm going to do another how-to video today. It's going to be from Tom Emsley, I believe it is. And he has several questions here, so we're going to address a couple things on this video because they're relatively simple, and he admits that he's a beginner and we're involved in a beginner. His first question my question is, if I go to a train show and buy a DCC ready locomotive that is used but runs okay, how do I find out the brand and model of the locomotive so I know which DCC decoder to buy if there is no box for the locomotive? So let's address that first off. Okay, Tom, for the most part, most recent locomotives, and this doesn't apply to older stuff, but most of the recent locomotives have the name or the brand on the bottom of the fuel tank. I don't know if we'll be able to see this. You can see that this locomotive is made by Walthers. Pardon my shaking hand here. You can see that this locomotive, if I can get it in the picture, is a Cato, however you want to go with that. You can see that this one here is an Atlas. I don't know if I have that upside down or right side up, but anyway, it's an Atlas. So I guess what I'm saying is generally, if it's a more recent locomotive, you'll find the manufacturer on the bottom of the locomotive. If it doesn't say that, you might try the trucks, looking over the trucks, but generally somewhere on it there'll be a name. If there's not a name on it, I wouldn't, personally, it's probably too old for a standard drop-in decoder, even at that rate. I'm not a real trusting soul on a lot of used equipment unless you know how to look at it, see what kind of abuse it may have taken or not taken. But like I say, if it does not have a name on it, I think I would stay away from it, because it's probably going to be something that's going to require frame milling and God knows what, that you're going to spend on something that you're going to spend probably 2 or 3 times more on it to put a decoder in it than what the locomotive costs. So that answers the question, I believe, of how to figure out who the manufacturer is. There has been instances where I've had to take the shell off of some to figure out what, because Atlas is real good about marking their frames. So you may find an Atlas that has a Cato brand name on the bottom of it, or an Atlas that has the year and the manufacturer stamped into the frame of the locomotive, or cast into the frame of the locomotive. And then it says, do I need to use Digitrax? Well, he says that he has a Digitrax DCC system, and he wants to know, do I have to use a Digitrax decoder since I have a Digitrax system? Do DCC ready locomotives usually have drop-in decoders? Well, I've covered 2 questions there, but let's start with the first one. If you have a DCC ready locomotive, or any locomotive that you put a decoder into, whether it's wired in or if it's wired in or a drop-in or a sound decoder, it doesn't really matter. Anybody's decoder will run with anybody's system, as far as I know, and I haven't found that to be contradictory anywhere. The NMRA has set specs to where certain CVs are within the decoder that control the motor and the different functions and so forth, and standardize that. So anybody's decoder works with anybody's system. So we got that question. And then for the next question there, do DCC ready locomotives usually have drop-in decoders? No, they do not have a drop-in decoder, but they can have a drop-in decoder installed in them. If a locomotive has nothing on the outside of the box, generally it is not going to be DCC ready. If the locomotive box says that it's DCC ready, it usually implies that it will take a drop-in decoder. That being said, there are some decoders out there who are not some decoder installations that are not truly drop-in. For instance, some of the Intermountain locomotives require you to desolder the headlight and resolder it to the new board. They require some insulating of the motor tabs before you can actually put the decoder in. And the same thing kind of applies to a few of the Atlas locomotives. You have to split the frame on an Atlas locomotive to put the decoder in. And when you do that, I would recommend putting Kapton tape. And Kapton tape would be the only tape I would use, simply because Kapton tape is expensive, but it's very, very heat resistant. You can use Scotch tape if you want, but don't expect great success. Anyway, I wrap it around the frame where the motor tabs come up, just so you don't have a shorting issue there. But like I say, as a rule, anything that says DCC ready is ready to put a decoder in, and usually relatively simple, if not extremely simple. They kind of have a range there that they vary in. If the locomotive says DCC equipped, then it would have a DCC a DCC decoder in it. So I hope that clears up the not saying anything DCC ready and DCC equipped. And let's move on to the next question. All right, guys, we're going to address Tom's next question and final question here. And he's asking if you can take a broken locomotive, in other words, one that a gear has broken in, or something internally in the locomotive has broken. Can you take the guts out of that locomotive and turn it into effectively a dummy? He does not use the word dummy. He said a non-powered unit. That's basically what a dummy is, or was in HO. Typically, not all the time, someone made a dummy unit to go with one of their locomotives, and I think Lifelike did the same thing at one point in time. However, as a rule, dummies in N scale are not made, simply because the locomotives and trains themselves are heavy enough that it usually requires the power of those two locomotives anyway, unless you have a completely flat layout. But to answer your question, yes, it can be done. In fact, this one locomotive here, the Atlas that I showed you a while ago, which happens to be, I don't know what the heck it is, U30B or something, which I just lost a piece off of here, but I think it's a U30B or U23B. There you go. It's exactly what you're talking about. Now, you got to keep in mind, and sometimes it also requires taking the internal gears out of the truck here, because you don't want all those gears running. So you want the main gears out of the truck. All you want to leave there is the axles, okay? It can be done. It has been done. It is done. I have 2 or 3 of these on the layout that I've stripped out the insides of. I've left the pickup strips on here so that the headlight on the locomotive works. However, it's not an economical thing to do, and generally you need that power anyway, like I said. So, but if you have a junker, yeah, it can be done. Obviously, it can be done. What you have to keep in mind, and what I was leading to there a while ago and got off my train of thought, is that you got to consider that this now weighs approximately 2 or 3 times more than one standard car. So you add this to your train, and it's for the effect of looking like a powered locomotive. Now you got to take 3 cars off the back of your train because the one locomotive won't pull it. So you got to consider the weight. Even after you strip this out, you got to consider the weight that you're dragging around here too. Sometimes it's just more beneficial to use 2 decoder-equipped locomotives. So Tom, I hope that answers your questions, and as far as I can see here, that's all the questions that you had for me right now, and I hope this has been helpful to all you guys. So we'll wrap this up. Okay, guys, that's it for this edition of the how-tos. I hope it cleared up some things for some of the new guys, especially Tom. And I hope you guys will come back and see me on the next video. In the meantime, take care and have fun at the hobby, and we'll talk to you later.